Stacy, who's doing
Good
that intro?
morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to another episode of From the Ground Up. Real-time issues and real-time solutions for MWBE, sponsored by Queen Strategy Partners, Nicole Valentine Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. We thank you so much for tuning in, for being a part of the show, for sharing our show. So we invite you to visit our website at queenstrategy.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Queen Strategy Partners or on Facebook at Queen Strategy Partners, where we broadcast live, and we have our replays on YouTube if you do the search for Queen Strategy Partners. So we're excited that we have been providing you this content and information all throughout COVID-19, because we realize that there still is opportunity. And once you have hope, there's nothing that you cannot do. So it's a pleasure to be able to be here as a collaborative effort, that three businesses came together knowing that we could be stronger in a collaborative force as a joint venture than we could by ourselves. So we're living the model that we speak about, and it's such an exciting opportunity to work with these dynamic women and to have my beautiful co-host with me today, Danielle Douglas. So over to you, Danielle.
So thank you, Stacy, for that great introduction. Once again, we are really excited about today's show. We have been very intentional about making this a three-part series, how to successfully get a contract as an MWBE. And we are excited about the guests we have with us today, Carlos Bannister. We have tried to bring you great resources in regards to subject matter experts that can provide valuable information to you about how to get a contract as an MWBE. We intentionally brought subject matter experts from the state level, from a private industry level, and now Carlos Bannister will be speaking to you from the city level. So if you really think about all the information that you received, and by the end of this show, our goal is that you have the tools and the resources that you need to really successfully get a contract as an MWBE. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Carlos Bannister. Carlos Bannister joined NYC-DOT, the Department of Transportation, in March of 1999 as an intern in the agency chief contracting office, where he has risen to the rank of senior deputy agency chief contracting officer and MWBE officer. He oversees the vendor relations and contract compliance units. Under his oversight, he advises the agency in making award determinations, enforces vendor integrity, and manages the vendor performance evaluations, and manages the agency disadvantaged business enterprise and minority women business enterprise programs. So without further ado, we are introducing Carlos Bannister. How are you doing this morning, Carlos?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you, Carlos, because you're one of the key people that can really answer questions, especially on the city level. You're not to this, as they would say, you're true to this. You've seen it all.
Yes.
You've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and your level of expertise is just amazing. So I really hope those of you that are tuning in take the time to share this broadcast now. Let people know that this three-part series, it keeps, as one of my girlfriends would say, getting better and better, even though we know that's not a word. But we know that it's an opportunity for us as MWBEs to get access to the right information. And as we jump into the conversation, let's just put it out there. Everybody's talking about budget deficit, right? We're talking about all of the challenges that are happening in the city, how we're going to make things happen, what has to get cut, the budget that just passed. So with all of the deficit talk in New York City, how will that impact opportunities for MWBEs?
Well, to be honest, obviously with the budget cuts, I could talk from the context of New York City DOT. We roughly spend about $1.2 billion a year. And with the budget cuts, I think we have to cut like 35 to 40%. So we're estimating now only about 700 to 800 million. So what that's going to cause is going to be less opportunities as we expected. So we had to put our procurement plan a little further down the line. So there won't be as much discretionary spend. The volume levels will be a little low, but there will still be opportunities because every contract that is subject to local law 1 will have the same amount of goals. But the mostly part I think will be effective really is the payment side, which is very important. We're trying to figure out a strategy how to ensure that MWs get paid faster. And there's going to be a lag, to be honest with you, due to the fact of the money crunch, mostly on the payment side. But as far as the procurements, there'll be less opportunities, and the volume of discretionary spend will be a little bit lower than usual. But other than that, I think it'll be same as business. We will have high goals, and we will continue to have opportunities. But the payment side will be a struggle. It'll be probably like an extra month, extra 4 weeks. So when you're planning to go on bid on it, please take in count that there will be probably a delay in the payment about 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow. You know, that's really, really, really important, Carlos. And we really appreciate you bringing it up, because that's the type of thing that someone could be what I call, I don't call it, but it's termed unconsciously incompetent. Mm-hmm. They don't know what they don't know. And exactly. So although we speak about working capital, what you just shared is really critically important, because if MWBEs are looking to still take advantage of city contracts, it's even more important now more than ever that they consider working capital and access to capital so that they could successfully fulfill on the contract.
Yeah, I would, if I were them, if whatever contract you're going to do, subcontracting, if you're going for a prime, or if you're going to discretionary spend, you should ask the question, what is the payment schedule? Because in this climate, the payments, I want to be clear and honest and open with you guys. There's obviously going to be a payment crunch. We try to do prompt payment and so forth, but prime contractors is going to suffer a little bit, and MWs will definitely suffer. We have made a MWE first payment kind of thing, that if you're MWE, you get the payment first. Even we've been asking prime contractors in this climate now to take priority to pay the MWs first. But even them, they crying and saying, look, we getting the same crunch. We'll do the best they can. So just plan ahead. Make sure you have good credit, get your credit going on, or even partner. This is the time to better partner rather than have the burden all on yourself. Partner with someone else to carry the burden so that you don't get too hurt. You don't feel the pain too by yourself.
So you also mentioned, Carlos, about discretionary spend. So yes. How can MWBEs learn more about how to secure those type of contracts and utilize the discretionary spend bucket?
Well, all the requirement now was, as of last July, we were supposed to put all the agencies supposed to put the discretionary spend on our website. On DOT's website, if you click doing business with DOT, there's a part that says MWE small purchase opportunities. Once you click there, there's a list of all the discretionary spend. Unfortunately, I looked at it this morning, and some of it needs to be updated because during the time of the pandemic, some of the things, like I said, that we had to cut some of those programs. So we're going in the process now, updating that site so that you'll see upcoming like trainings, goods and services. So every agency's website has a section where it shows MW discretionary spend. It's usually talking about doing business with DEP, doing business with DDC. DDC owned, they have a MWBE dedicated link. So you click on it, you'll see it. So DOT though is doing business with DOT, and then when you click it, you're going to see MW small purchase spend from 20 to 500,000.
So can you explain just a little bit more, because some people might not know about the discretionary spend and how that came about? Can you just explain a little bit more for some of our newer MWBs who don't know that this is a great way to get your foot wet in doing contracting with the government?
Yeah, before the discretionary spend was only to $20,000, the agency had the opportunity just to go straight without competition. We went to City Hall and Albany, a bunch of us under Jonell Doris and his team. and connected with Senator Sanders and Ronise Bichette, Assemblywoman Bichette, and we went down to Albany, and we were able to fight and got the this whole thing from 20,000 now all the way up to 500,000. We actually wanted $1 million, but they said that's too much. I don't know, because MTA has $1 million, so we're continuing that fight to raise it up to $1 million. So basically, once you get discretionary spend, how it works is that the agency will send out information about what they're looking for. Once you respond back, we just go to the lowest MWBE bidder, and we just give you the opportunity. This is a good way to get in because you get to meet the people. The best way is the fiscal officers. Once you become friends with the fiscal officers within the agency, they tend to continue to give you, let you know the opportunities. So it's not only just building relationships. Building relationships is very important. Whatever your bellywig is, if you're into bridges, find out who is the bridges fiscal officer. If you're into traffic, find out the traffic fiscal officers, because those are the persons who really control the money within the agency of that division and also push out the opportunities. You can always come to the ACO's office, ACO Central, where I'm located, and I will help you guide you in where to go so you will find out about the discretionary spend.
Thank you for that, Carlos. And I put the site up while we're here. You know, it's a real easy search that you can go and, you know, put in doing business with DOT, and you can see that there's so many tabs here updating you on what's available from a resource guide, passport. Do you want to touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, that is one of the, I think, is the key thing for MWBEs. So I'm not sure if y'all are aware, but New York City is going paperless. I don't know what took us so long to do that, but we're going electronic. So what that means is all the bidding, all the pre-qualifications, everything will be going through the Passport system. So going forward, there'll be bids inside Passport. There'll be reviews of RFPs in Passports. There'll be discretionary spends processed through Passport. So what does that mean? Well, you have to sign up with a Passport account. The rule says that if you have over 250,000 aggregate amount in 12 months, you should be in Passport. But I recommend, if you're trying to do business with the city, start a Passport account. Get into the payment information portal, sign up, put your commodity codes, fill out the questionnaire and the profile, and then you begin to start seeing a lot of opportunities because everything's going to be done through Passport. So Passport will be the central point for procurement, not just for DOT, all throughout this city of New York.
So, Carlos, you brought up a really, really good point, and that is about the commodity codes, right?
Yes.
Because that is how you identify a particular type of business that you may be looking for a particular contract opportunity, right? So if you're looking for, let's say for construction and you're looking for plumbers, then you're going to look up that commodity code so you can identify a list of plumbers, right?
Yes.
So, you know, a lot of NWBEs, they don't realize how important commodity codes are, right? And we had Tanya Pope from Columbia University. We had Carl Peters from the Port Authority, and they talked about NAICS codes. And usually when you go for your certification, your NWBE certification, they actually ask you for your NAICS codes. So with that said, a lot of NWBEs, they think, okay, I put in my codes, I'm good. Not realizing that the city has a totally different list of codes that they use, right?
Yes.
So with that said, how should NWBEs, one, look for their commodity codes, put in the commodity codes, and how many commodity codes should they put in, right? Because I know sometimes NWBEs are put in like 20 commodity codes, and that's too much. So or they don't put in any. So what's the sweet spot as it relates to commodity codes as well? So I know that's kind of like 2 or 3 questions that I asked you as it relates to commodity codes.
So let me explain first the difference. So NIACS codes is mostly state and federal contract. They do things by NIACS, which is the North American Industry Construction Standards, Consulting Standards. New York City does the National Institute of Government Purchasing, which is NIGP. They're both the same thing. It's just that the numbers, the reference numbers for each one is a little different. So the city does the NIGP code. So what you should do is if you're already put in the NIAX codes, what you need to do is, matter of fact, I saw links on Google and different websites where they find the NIGP code associated with the NIAX code. So all you have to do is link your NIAX codes to the NIGP. For instance, there's a NIAX code for computer and IT related services. And there's also a code for NIGP for computer and services. So you just merge those and make sure you have those same codes. How many codes you should put on? Only the codes that's relevant to the services that you do. Oftentimes what we find is that people put so many codes. They're a plumber and they put in electrician codes. They're trying to get as much. They think that putting those codes will create more opportunities. Honestly, that hurts you because we don't take you serious because we think you're unorganized. We think that you're trying to over grab. And some of the best things to do is just stay within your reach. So find the codes that's related to your services, to your strengths, and so forth. But when you expand your business, obviously you continue. So for instance, we use the SBS directory. So the SBS directory is where the primary focus of all the agencies in the city, they use to find MWBEs. So when we go in there, if I'm looking for a plumber, I go in there, put in the code and do advanced search. All the plumbers are going to pull up. So we don't want to see an advertising agency linked to a plumbing code. So what to do is just make sure you have the right codes, because sometimes you're not getting the right opportunities is because you don't have the right codes in place that's related to your company.
Okay. And you said something very important, and we just want to re-emphasize this point. Where you put your commodity codes is different. You don't put those commodity codes in Passport.
Actually, you do. So what happens is when you're—
Thank you for the correction.
So when you register your account, it's really linked to the payment information portal. You guys do the payment information portal. All the codes that you already signed up for related to your company, they're going to pull those codes inside the system. So we don't look for MWBEs through Passport. We verify. We use Passport as a verification, right? Because this law says in the city procurement that every discretionary spend, any type of government procurement that I have to go out, I have to vet the company out. I have to check their character, their competence, and their capacity. So that's long and short, section 2.08 of the PBB rules, the vendor responsibility, right? So I go in Passport to check that. It gives me a little profile questionnaire, talks about your money. How much money do you get grossly per year? It talks about what your business is about. So I go in Passport just to verify your company, but most of your filings are doing off-site through the payment information portal and the NW directory, where it pulls that information while you sign up and it goes into Passport.
Okay. So, and go ahead. I'm sorry, Stacy.
Yeah, I'm just, because this is important for MWBEs, because I think what you said, we want to just definitely highlight that again. If you put too many codes, you could actually get yourself out of the running or out of the mix because you're not being taken seriously. And some people thought that, oh, well, let me just put a variety of things so I'll get highlighted or people will find my company. But I think that's an important point to underscore, is that as strategic as you can be with narrowing down your expertise, that's easier for someone like you, Carlos, that's vetting and sourcing these MWBEs to find them. Am I correct?
Yeah, because what happens is when you have too many commodity codes, it looks like you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, pretty much, right? Because when you're looking for a company, you already know that's not your belly. How can you be a master of all these trades if you're a small company, right? You have to pick something that you are good at, because what happens is when they go, we send a solicitation and they bid on it and they don't have the qualifications. Technically, you could be deemed non-responsible. You don't want that black mark to your company's name. So when we do these discretionary spends, especially when it gets to 500,000, we take it even more serious. We don't tend to deem MWBs non-responsible. What we do is we just start over and tell them we're going to do a new procurement, because a lot of times people are just trying to get an opportunity. But the truth is, yes, you need the opportunity, but make sure it's an opportunity that you can do, and make sure your codes and your company is very clear. I do plumbing. I don't do electricity. I don't do things. If you do electricity, if you put it there, make sure that you're planning to joint venture with another company that is an electrician. So if you're gonna do it, make sure you're doing it with joint venturing. You know, the reason why you did it is that you're planning to do some partnerships. You see that your plumbing work is very related to electrical work. So a lot of times if you get an electrical opportunity, you're not necessarily going to be the lead, but you're going to have a fellow MWB is going to take a lead, and I'm going to work alongside them because it's a little plumbing, if you understand what I'm saying. So if you're going to do that, just make sure it's more for a collaborative reason why you're doing it, of creating joint venture partnerships and so forth.
And Carlos, you also brought up something I think is very important, and that is character, competence, and capacity, right?
Yes.
So can you peel back the onion a little bit as it relates to that? And the reason why I bring it up even more so is because with the capacity piece, it's very important that MWBEs really understand what their capacity is for their own internal reasons. Because if you go for a contract and now that you're saying the payment may be delayed, they got to make sure that they stay within a certain, what I want to say, like they don't go above a certain threshold and they may bite off more than they can chew. Right. So you're looking at it from one perspective, but the MWBEs need to be clear as well so that they can continue to be successful and grow, opposed to, again, putting themselves in a precarious situation.
Yeah, I cite to summarize the PBB rules. It's so long, but in 3 alliteration, 3 C's: character, competence, and capacity. So every vendor has to be deemed a responsible vendor before we go to award of the opportunity. And in the PBB rules is a vendor responsibility section. And the big thing is capacity. Let me go through the C's. Character talks about integrity. Make sure that you don't have any skeletons in your closet that will hurt the agency. You know, once we search you, we're not going to have a big New York Post article about DOT doing business with a bad company, right? Competence is that you have the experience of doing the work. And capacity, we mostly look at your financial side, but not just the financial side, the labor, the manpower. Do you have the manpower and so forth? At this stage of the game, financial capacity is very important. So if you know that you only have about $250,000 credit and you go off for a job of $500,000, it's very likely you might hurt your business. Like I said, for instance, we've seen companies, they know that there's a delay. Even in a normal state, let's be honest, in a normal state, in a normal environment without the pandemic, payments are delayed anyway. So it's going to be even more exacerbated. It's going to even be more amplified. So what you should do is make sure, like I said, when you have a bid, for instance, ask the question. I know there's a pandemic. What is the payment delay on that? And then also ask the prime contractor that you're dealing with. Do you have any programs for MWBs? Because there's some prime contractors that do a very good job. They have a bigger credit line, and they say, okay, we will give you 30% of your payment, even though the city did not pay you. So look for these kind of opportunities. Also, talk to SBS, right? Commissioner Jonelle Doris has a very good program where they have very good training programs where it helps you to find out, because a lot of people do not know their capacity. Let's be honest. They don't know their financial capacity. But they have a program where they help you to understand your financial capacity. Go on their website. They have a program for that. They have programs that talks about your bailiwick. Find out exactly what are you competent at, so that you're not all over the place. Because this is a time where it's very risky, and I'm very nervous, honestly, because you know, when in crisis you have either danger or opportunity. It could be a great opportunity, but it's very dangerous, because if you overreach, you might destroy your company. So you have to ask a lot of questions. and you have every right to ask a question before you put your foot in the pool. So, ask questions. There's a period of time where agency has to answer your questions. So ask the payment question. Is there a delay in payments at DOT? What is the lag? We will answer it. Ask your prime contractor. These are the questions I will always ask, and we always have to answer. We will always have to answer it, and we have to answer it publicly and let everyone know this is what's going on.
And Carlos, can I build upon that again? Because you're giving such great practical information. And I just had a discussion with someone just last week, and we were kind of talking about what we're talking about now. And they were sharing the importance of MWBEs reading their contract as well. The contract you're signing with that agency or prime, because what can happen is if you could be really excited about this phenomenal opportunity, especially if you are in construction and you may not read the fine print and you don't realize that they asked you to build a wall that you did not include in your pricing structure. And that right there could be the death of you. I mean, the death of your business. Forgive me for saying the death, but the death of your business, because you did not anticipate that, because you did not read the fine print. And so again, in the environment that we're in, yes, that piece is important, but you better read your contract and understand the terms, not only from a financial perspective, but what is expected of you. Because if you don't, and you just think, oh, I'm going to do this, or I thought I was going to do this, and you didn't see that fine print, again, it could make a significant difference.
Yeah. So every contract book has what you call the scope, and it also has the minimum requirements. So you got to first read the minimum requirements. At DOT, the Schedule A is like a summary sheet of all the requirements, so to speak. It tells you how much bonding, how much, what are the goals. It tells you all those important financial details. It tells you about subcontracting and so forth. Most contracts is boilerplate throughout the city. There's a Schedule A. But what you're saying is very important. I just had a purchase. Someone missed a line. They lost out on a $250,000 opportunity because we gave it to them. They had a good price. We were like, wow, this is in budget. Then we realized the price was quite low. So we were like, this is quite low. Did you read this section here? We needed X. And they were like, oh, we missed this. And then they were like, can I add that in? It would be a different price. And I told them, no, you submitted your bid and this is it. I cannot give you a second bite of the apple. And these are the kind of things we had to go to the next vendor who had everything. So you have to, and the thing about it, if they had put in their price, they still would have been the lowest bidder. So it's very important to read every requirement. Sometimes, people just read it once. No, sometimes twice is nice, right? So keep reading it and reading it. If you don't understand, ask the agency. You send an email. Look, I saw this requirement. Does this mean you need A and B and C? We can't tell you means and methods, but we can tell you what we mean. See, the means and methods is what you got to decide, but we can tell you what we mean by what we write. Because let's be honest, some of our contract books are convoluted and it's not very clear. So we expect you to ask questions. We might say we want a 6-foot pole, and we might say this in a fancy word rather than say it's 6-foot pole, and sometimes it's not very clear. So ask us. We're not going to tell you how you got to install the pole. That's up to you. But we will tell you what we mean. So I think that you're very important. That's a very important key. Read the contract book and try to understand in detail what you want. And ask questions. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It just means that you're trying to be very clear.
And aren't there support mechanisms to go through these contract books so that people can understand and ask questions? What sort of opportunities, especially with DOT, is available for that? Yeah,
so during the solicitation phase, there is they have a pre-bid meeting, right? During the pre-bid meeting is a time where we discuss the procurement in details. Then also you have, again, small business services is the arm of the agencies where they will help you submit the bid, help you analyze an RFP, and help you submit an RFP. So again, SBS is the great resource. That's who we use as the arm within the agency to help the MWBEs. They have a lot of free tools. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's good tools that you can do. Because a lot of times they have the connections. They will call the agency to either go online and do a video or teach a lesson or even to explain it further. So you should go to SBS website and also tag into that. So if you're about to submit an RP and you're not sure, you can ask the agency questions, but we can't really help you, right? I can't help you write the RFP, but SBS can help guide you in a more detailed way than the agency who's letting the procurement out. So I will work with SBS, but also you got to ask the right questions, the relevant questions.
Yeah. And specifically, just note specifically in SBS, it's usually their default department, the division of economic, financial opportunity, I believe. But default, as it relates to assisting MWBEs and their contracts or RFP, filling out an RFP and things of that nature, they are the division within SBS that really works with MWBEs, and even the PTAC department falls under default as well. Yeah.
And those are some reminders that we'll make sure from the ground up sends out so that you can just get familiar with it, whether you need it now or need it later. It's better to be forearmed so that you can have the information and the resources when that time comes, because we want all MWBEs to secure contracts. It's not just about the 30% utilization. We want everybody to be in a position where they're receiving what others have received for years with government contracting and building their personal economies and businesses in a way that we have valuable individuals with great companies that can offer services to our city. So we appreciate you going into that detail and really just exploring what's there, because some folks only stick to one agency. They don't know there are multiple agencies that you can collect.
Also, I forgot to miss this, is that right now most of the bids are virtual, so people are using Zoom, and one of the problems within the agencies were MWs were not going up to the pre-bid meetings and the pre-proposal meetings, and that is crucial because the project manager is there. Literally the project manager for that project is there, so they can talk about that project in details, and that's the time where they're open to answer all the questions, and there's a PowerPoint presentation about the project, so you get a lot of details. And then not only that, a lot of prime contractors come to those things. So usually at DOT, I know for DOT our policy is that we ask, are there any MWBEs in the space? And we let the prime contractors know. So this MW is here, they specialize in X, Y, and Z. So if you're looking for that, please connect with them. Since it's virtually, I don't know how we're doing. I'm going to find out. But I've been on one virtual pre-bid meeting where the whole thing, you can ask questions, you can raise your hand virtually, we press the button in Zoom and ask the questions. And then I think we share the list of all the prime contractors that are that are attending to go for the procurement. So attend the meetings. Now you don't have to physically move in, and you can be in the comfort of your home and look at these virtual pre-bid meetings and proposals and find out more information about these projects.
So Carlos, that is critically important what you just brought up. And the reason why is because we were going to ask you, how does an MWBE network in this time or during this time of coronavirus so that they can connect with primes as well as other MWBEs that they could potentially collaborate with? So you brought up a great resource by going to these pre-bid meetings. That's a way that they can network, again, either with primes or for collaboration efforts.
Yeah. And also, what I found is up to yesterday, HNTB is one of the big professional engineering services in New York City. They're doing a webinar in August looking for MWBEs and professional services. So a lot of these prime contractors and prime consultants are doing webinars because in this climate, they can't go. We're not having any MWBE outreach events in this climate. So a lot of it is virtually. So what I found is a lot of these prime contractors are hosting their own virtual outreach programs to find traffic people, to find various different expertise that they're planning. Because like I said, the budget is already passed. So they already know the projects. So one of the things a lot of MWBs don't know is where to find the information. I don't know if people know that the city council's website, the New York City Council's website, has for each agency where the budgets are passed and a general overview of what sections of where the money is going for each agency. Right now, I saw FY 2020. I think, and shortly you'll see FY 21. All of the money, where the money is going. So you can plan as an MWB. Okay, the money's going in the traffic. The money's going in bridges. The money is going here. So you can target the people who you want to talk to. So that's the kind of thing a lot of people don't know. The city council. Also, the mayor office of contract services. By law, I have to create a MWB plan every year. It's on the website. For fiscal year 21, I have every project that we projected, despite the budget cuts, we have every project we projected for fiscal year 21 that will be subject to Local 01. It's right there on the website, on the Mayor Office of Contract Services. You click Local 01, it has every single agency. So there's no excuse. You will know what we're about to go push out. And it's on the Mayor's Office of Contract Services website. You just go on it, and it shows you everything. And I think that's key, because then you can plan better, and then you will know, the industry. So for instance, in the industry at DOT, what you do is go in City Record and look at who won the last bids. Those are the same players that's going to go and bid on these big construction contracts, and simultaneously the same ones for the RFPs. So those are the ones who you will try to contact virtually. Say, look, I would like to have a virtual meeting with you so we can meet one another, for construction and RFPs. So those are the key places. I see it. The budget reports is there. And if you go in the mayor office, I will send this information to both of you, Danielle and Stacy, if you want exact links, where you could just click it and it'll tell you all the agencies' Local Law 1 plans, and it'll also tell the budget.
Wow. And Carlos, you are, I keep saying this, but you're like, if the people don't understand the nuggets that you are dropping this morning, I mean, you are giving such valuable information, because again, even with you bringing up HNTB, right? We know that there's major players. HNTB is not only doing major city contracts, but they are significant. They're playing a significant role for the Port Authority project, right? A major $17 billion infrastructure project, right? We know that, for instance, AECOM, they do a lot of projects for the city, but they are going to be the construction manager for the JetBlue part of the Port Authority. So if you can begin to, when we talk about networking, and be strategic and understand how to connect with either some of these major organizations that are playing in both the city government as well as with state, these other major projects, then that's part of being strategic, intentional, and networking as well.
Yeah, you got to know the people in these different organizations. Like HNTB is Emily Gallo. She's former DOT. She's over there in charge of the government relations. She reached out to me and told me, let the MWBs know that I'm having this webinar because they have this big project, like you said, and they're looking for MWBEs. So, try to go on the website, do some digging, and you'll find out the government relations person, the diversity and inclusion person is the person who you have to email, and keep persistent about it. Say, listen, I know we're in COVID-19, I can't meet you face to face, but what are your projects? How can I help? This is my expertise. But the first thing they're going to ask you, one, is, are you updating your passport? Did you do your stuff in PIP? They're going to ask you stuff like, what are the last contracts you have? So be organized, be ready to talk about it. What is your capacity? Don't be hemming and hawing when they ask you these questions. Be prepared when you're going in front of these people, because sometimes they only have time to meet one. There's thousands of you, and the time is the essence. So when you go to them, come correct, be organized, have your brochures, have everything ready and available, so that when you're discussing with them, it's the same old questions. Do you have passport? What are your NIGB codes? What are your experiences, and so forth? It's the same questions over and over again, but make sure you have your material, not that you're searching for it while you're having a conversation with these players.
Okay. And that goes back to capability statement, right?
Yep, exactly.
and having a good capability statement.
An elevator pitch, like SBS trains the MWBs, have your elevator pitch. Don't go around trying to talk a dissertation in 25 minutes about your company. Something quick, simple, and easy. Practice your elevator pitch. And so that we can grabs the attention of the person listening, and then say, oh, I want to find more about your company and so forth.
Absolutely. And I put up for our MWBEs just an example of what you were saying with local law 1 procurement. So every single agency is listed here, and it was updated on the 30th of June. So
the deadline. That was the deadline we had to do it by.
So it's all there. And it's interesting if we can just carve out time to do a little research. As Danielle mentioned, we have to do things differently now. We can't get together in person. So utilizing these virtual opportunities to join these webinars. And as you're going to be so gracious, Carlos, to share additional information where government relations, they're looking for MWBEs. So they're looking for us. And we need to be visible so that people can find each and every one of the MWBEs that are ready to do business with the city, with the state, and potentially federal government. There's so much open now in the midst of the crisis. I still believe there is more opportunity if we can just keep our eye on the prize.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about, because DOT is a tri-funded agency. We have city, I have state funds, and I have federal funds. So usually when I go, anytime I talk about MWBs, I try to tell people, be certified, not just MWB, be certified as a DBE. Because once you get into the federal space, it's no longer MWB, it's what you call DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. If you're not a DBE, please become a DBE. You are already qualified. Most of it is like a SBA program for the federal space. It's very important because the agencies like me, DEP, the Big Five, we are very tri-funded. We have different funding streams. And the rule is once you have a penny of federal funds, the whole procurement structure has to be federal. So I love local law 1, I love MWBs, but you also have to be certified DBE. At this stage of the game, during this pandemic, if you want to create more opportunities, stretch your certification. Be city certified, state certified, and federally certified as a DBE. So you get 3 opportunities rather than focusing on one stream opportunity of one thing. If you're only city certified, you only can get local law 1. If you're only state certified, you only get Article 15. If you're only federal, you only get 49 CFR 26. So you gotta you gotta have all of those certifications. This is the time. While everything is going slow, we're not pushing procurements out as fast as usual. This is the time to get your administrative side in order and make sure you're certified in all those areas.
Okay, so you brought up another, again, dropping another jewel, and that is that although, DOT gets funding on the federal, state, and local level, it sounds like, I'm asking a question even though it sounds like I'm forming it in the statement, that you only take the DBE certification and the city certification. You don't accept technically the state certification.
I do if I have a state procurement.
Got it.
But we don't have 100% state funds. Usually what we use, the DOT uses what we call CHIP funds for like our traffic contracts for the street lighting program and the poles and so forth, the signs, as you can see. However, they match, the federal matches. So once the federal gets involved, it becomes DBE. So it's not straight. So once federal comes in, the whole program no longer a thing. So primarily, I'll be honest with you, it's about a 60-40 kind of thing. 60% of our projects mostly are federally funded, and then about 40% is about city funded. Lately, I haven't seen state funds. If we do have a state project, it'd be like 5% of our whole capital program, like 1 or 2. But majority of our projects are the big ones now. Are the federal, like the big bridge projects y'all see, like the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, that was federally funded, but the Queensboro Bridge was city funded. So that was an MWE project. So you had 2 DBE projects and 1 MWE project. But if you're certified across the board, you got opportunities for 3 projects. And that's what I'm saying, to make sure, you have a DBE certification, because it's very important. Most of our agencies because the city is strapped, a lot of agencies are now going to go for federal funds, right? Because they're not a lot in a lot of city money. So everyone is filling out for the grants, for the federal grants, whatever Trump sends our way. We're trying, as you all know, the politics in that, because we're a sanctuary city and limited of funds. So we're trying to find ways that we can not touch the city pool as much. Try to get some projects federally funded. So try to get your DBE certification.
So I just brought it up on your site with the DBE. Is there a fast track? So for the MWBEs that are listening to you, and they're like, okay, Carlos, we hear you. We're going to go ahead and do this. Is there a fast track opportunity to get certified as a DBE? And is it just one spot on the federal level? Is it DBE for the state, for the city? So just want to give some more clarity to the MWBEs that want to jump on this information that you're giving.
Yeah, so the certification boards is Port Authority on their website. They can certify you as a DBE. Also, the New York State DOT can certify you, and MTA. There is reciprocity through these certifications where they fast track you. If you're, for instance, already a state MWBE, most likely you'll be certified as a DBE. Remember, DBE is not based on your ethnicity. It's based on your financial state. There's a gross amount per year that means. So there are some MWBEs that will not meet the requirements of DBEs because you're making a certain amount of money. Because the DBE program is a SBA program, so it's not based on ethnicity and so forth. It's mostly based on an economic-based situation where how much gross money do your company get. So there's some MWBEs are very successful, so they're not going to be able to do it. But majority, I found 60% of the MWBEs that are city and state certified can be DBE certified. They just got to go to these various bodies and boards that do the certifications.
And Carlos, just to build upon what you said, as well as Stacy, even if someone is already MWBE certified, like we said, on a city level, state level, if they do pursue the DBE certification, they will have to go through that certification process all over again. So they have to just be mindful of that. You know, you could be certified already a year or 2 years or whatever. Just know you're going to go through, you're going to have all your paperwork in order as you did initially for the city and state certification and Port Authority certification at that to get certified as a DBE.
Yep.
So you have to be prepared for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this was really Carlos, you are just the clearinghouse of all information MWBE. Like, we are just so honored that you are here with us because you're passionate about the work. You know, as Danielle introduced you and read your resume and what you do, it's more than work to you. This is a mission. You're really committed to making sure that MWBEs have access and opportunity. And I am just so grateful. I see LaTonya. Hey, darling. She's saying thank you so much for this information, that this is very helpful, because there are a lot of people who are coming into this space and they don't know all of this data. So she's waiting on her DBE to be approved. So we're glad to hear that. And this is why we're doing the show from the ground up, real-time issues and real-time solutions. This is not fluff. This is what can we do right now to make sure that we're in position to take advantage of the opportunities that still exist. So 1.2 billion going down to 700 million, that's still a lot of, as the kids would say, shmoney.
Yep.
So
a lot of cheddar.
A lot of opportunity for us to be able to be a part of this. And she said, thank you so much, Carlos, for sharing. So we really appreciate the fact that you all have been tuning in for this 3-part series, because this is at the meat of it. When Danielle and I were talking, we were like, this is part of the core work that MWBEs need to know and to be aware of so that we can be successful at the end of the day. We just don't want to be a number on a 30% utilization goal. We want to be a success story for the city, for the state, for the federal government, that we can change economies by having access to these contracts.
And I want to build on what you're saying, because The other thing is, I've been wanting to ask this for about 5 or 10 minutes, but you've just been giving such great information. I'll throw out another question based on what you say. Is
Mhm.
that according to a Bloomberg report that just came out, I would say maybe about a month ago now, 4 to 6 weeks
Mhm.
ago, 41% of Black businesses will be no more. Right now,
Yep.
we know that obviously that may include NWBE certification. They may be include your barber, your hairdresser, all those type of Black businesses as well. But the point is that for you, Carlos, if you take those numbers in consideration, because we know there will be casualties in the
Yep.
NWBE space, how will you begin? I mean, will your vetting process be different for NWBEs? Like will you just continue to do business as usual with the list, and then based on who responds, then they're still in business. Like, what does that look like post COVID-19? Because people's capacity, at the very least, even if they're still in business, their capacity may be different now, right? And
So
capacity
it's
is
a
so
very good question because see the thing is a catch-22, right? You want to protect the agency, but you also want to protect, because the agency cannot fulfill its mission without the NWBs. Let's be honest, right? The whole we fully support the Balasio's mission, and I 100% agree with him. If the MWBs are not developed or not given opportunities, the economy will go down. So it's a catch-22. We have to build the NWBs during this time. But we also have to be honest with ourselves. During this time, a lot of MWBs do not have the same amount of financial capacity as they used to. So we as an agency have to be sensitive to this kind of culture and to this time and climate. So one of the things I'm in charge of the vetting. So what I do is I look at the NWBs and I try to do it the normal way, but I also put a caveat. I ask some serious questions. Can you really do this? What are your weak points? And I have the ability and the discretion maybe to make the procurement smaller, right? And as an agency, that is what we're having discussions, right? Maybe you cannot get the 500,000, but what if I just split it to 250,000? Give that person the 250,000, and then give another NWB 250,000. These are things that not the onus only has to be on our NWBs. The onus has to be also be on the agency. The laws have us handcuffed sometimes, but sometimes, like with the discretion spend, it really is up to us. So what we've been doing is looking at the wide scope of things and see who are the MWs that will tend to go for it. I'm going to try to figure out a way where we can just do a market focus on various different opportunities and try to get a feel of what MWs can do. Because honestly, I do not know. And I want to know, what can you do at this point? What are your financial capacity? Because there has to be a serious conversation within the agency now to debundle some things, because we can't be throwing out things for 500,000 and we know that you guys can't do it. That's not really fair. And then I say you're not have the ability and the capacity to do that when I already know the climate. So we're trying to do that. Nancy Carolyn, the agency chief contracting officer in New York City DOT, we've had this conversation many times of saying, like, what do we need to do? And one of the things we're doing is we're still vetting them the same way, but we're also trying to measure, have great expectations. We don't have unrealistic expectations. We know it's rough out there. So maybe we need to make our contracts a little smaller, and it's a little bit more work for us because it's larger volumes, but that will help the smaller businesses to get opportunities.
right and rebuild.
And rebuild, yeah.
Yeah.
And we got to partner with small business services, right? That's the key, because they're the ones who are creating this mission to help rebuild and maintain what is out there. And as an agency, DOT, we very partner with the Commissioner Jonel Doris and his team on any shape or form, even if it's coming on events like this. I plan to try to focus on how I could come back on again and really dive into our opportunities. Because I don't know if you, as we all know, the elephant in the room, less than 2% goes to African Americans. That is a burden on my heart, and is a burden at the agency. How we can have equity in this procurement process in New York City, because equity has not been shown throughout the years. And we're creating a program where we're trying to help Black businesses, because that number 40% is primarily Black businesses, to be clear. So we need to maintain that and work on that, and we're trying to do that. So the next time I come on, hopefully I'll have something there meaningful how we're going to do that to combat that problem, because I'm going to make it difficult that those 40% do not die if they relate with DOT. So that's my job, and I'm going to try to make it difficult that those, out of whatever I can do at DOT, that they don't die. We will create opportunities that is there and reasonable so that we can continue to keep these businesses. Because if these businesses continue, I believe the economy continues and communities could get better.
Right. Absolutely. And we create jobs.
Exactly.
Right? It's
and lower crime. And lower crime too.
Yes.
Yeah.
People won't be robbing nobody because they got jobs.
Because they have jobs. I mean, that's the economics of it. It is what it is. So hearing you passionately talk about that fight for equity, we appreciate that. We're excited to have you back. You have an open invitation to come on the From the Ground Up series at any point that you can. You. Commissioner Doris is definitely doing a great job. You know, he's inherited quite a bit in the midst of this COVID-19. I call it the COVID-19 nightmare. But yes, we will get out of this eventually. This too shall pass. And we just want to make sure that MWBE survive and thrive. So we can't panic. As we started this series, that was the first thing Danielle said, let's be intentional and talk about pivoting. And if you want to pivot, you can't panic. So every series that we've had has given MWBEs information in real time so that they can do the back end work, they can do the housekeeping, they can do all of the things to position themselves to win, because it's about all of us. Collectively, Queen Strategy, we are functioning as a JV. We're living the collaborative process and not just trying to swim out there by ourselves, but knowing the power in coming together. And we want that same sort of opportunity for those who see it, who heard what you said. You know, I hope they're picking up what you were putting down today, because this was a show that would be a game changer for MWBEs, this 3-part series. So, Carlos, thank you so much for who you are. We've had the pleasure of working with you as Queen Strategy, and you are the person behind the words. And we appreciate having such an ally and friend in government that we can do business with. So we thank you for being on the show. We look forward to having you back. And I let my co-host close us out. I can't believe the time is gone already, but we'll be back next week, Tuesday, same time, same place.
You know what? I can't believe, as you said, Stacey, that we had the opportunity to speak to Carlos for a full hour. But this is what I'm going to say. This is the dialogue will continue, but as it relates to how to get a contract as an MWBE, we had phenomenal guests. This is, you know, it was a 3-part series. What I suggest is that, and this is my call to action to you as an MWBE, is that you review these 3 last webinars, and you literally, if you didn't do it, you put pen to paper, because what has been laid out for you is the whole master plan, strategy from a strategic perspective, from a tactical perspective. Shame on you if you do not take this information seriously. And I'm sure you've heard me say before that knowledge is power, and it does not become wisdom until it's applied, right? So we will continue to be here for you. We will continue to provide you great resources. We are doing our part, and we do perceive ourselves as being your partners. But I implore you to do your part. So until next week, make it happen. But we do look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday at 9:00. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.